Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's virtual open house to discuss the Municipal Development Plan, or also known as MDP. My name is Megan Langell, and I'm a strategist with public engagement for the RMWB, and I'm very excited to be hosting this virtual open house. Before we get started, I wanted to humbly acknowledge that the land on which we live, learn, work, and play is Treaty 8 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Dene, and the unceded territory of the Métis. If for some reason tonight your connection is lost, there is another way to listen in. The dial-in phone number and conference ID will be available for viewing within the Q&A chat, so feel free to write that down in case you have any internet issues so you can connect back with us. Also, we'll be recording this video, and it will also be placed on the website for viewing also. So let me give you an overview of our agenda for this evening and introduce the people joining me for this virtual open house. Joining me is Such Chadiok, Supervisor with the Department of Planning and Development, and hi Such, and Shailesh Makwana. He's the Planner 3, also with the Department of Planning and Development. Also, we have the team of O2 Planning and Design. Nicholas Cull is with us this evening. Hi, Nick. So in just a minute, I will invite Such to give us some background information about the Municipal Development Plan and how it will support the growth and development of our region for the next 20 years. After that, Nicholas from O2 Planning and Design will provide a presentation of the draft Municipal Development Plan, after which we'll open the floor to your questions. Now, throughout the presentation, the Q&A chat feature is available to ask questions and provide feedback. So please feel free at any time to ask away throughout the presentation, and we will circle back to you and respond accordingly within the Q&A portion. If you would like to ask a question in the Q&A on camera, you're perfectly able to do that with our Teams webinar. The opportunity will come at the Q&A section after the presentation, so please feel free to raise your hand or turn your camera on and we can call on to you to ask your question. And also, again, this evening's event will be recorded and posted to rmwb.ca/MDP for you in the coming days. So if you'd like to circle back to it or share with a friend, you're absolutely welcome to do that. So now let me invite Such to introduce himself and to provide some background information. Over to you, Such.
Thank you, Megan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Such Chadiok, as Megan introduced. I'm a supervisor in Planning and Development Department of the Municipality. We've been working on a project called Municipal Development Plan. This is a very high-level plan, and our consultant, Nick, is going to explain what exactly this plan is. This is the third phase of engagement. We've been working on this plan for about 1.5 years now. The first phase of engagement is where we came to you and we asked, how do you want to see this municipal development plan being prepared? The second phase of engagement was when we came back to you and we asked you about what do you think about the vision statement that we developed, and we also gave you some brief ideas about the goals that we were working on. And this is the third phase of engagement we have worked a little bit more, and we have crafted some policies for the next 20 years. These policies are going to direct us in terms of development of the region going forward. With that, I am going to pass it on to Nick, who is our consultant for developing this municipal development plan. We've been working with him hand in hand to work on this project. Nick has a presentation for us, and he'll walk us through that presentation. Nick, over to you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Such. I will share my screen right now. And can you just let me know if you can see it?
We can see it, Nick. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you so much. So as Such mentioned, my name is Nicholas Kuhl, and I am with the consulting firm O2 Planning and Design. We were engaged to co-develop this plan really with the planning and development team led by Such and Shailesh Makwana over the past 1.5 to 2 years. So this evening, I'll be going over the project to date, so what we've done, what we've heard, and then getting into the actual meat and potatoes of the plan itself, what the plan is proposing and some of the big ideas that are emerging in that document, letting you know what the implementation process looks like for the plan, so how it's actually going to happen, and then give you an overview of the next steps moving forwards towards that council review once the document is complete. And throughout this evening's presentation, again, you're encouraged to provide your comments and questions through the chat function on the Teams. As I mentioned, this plan has really been co-developed with my team at O2 and with the regional municipalities planning and development team as well. So you might be hearing answers from a range of different people, but we're all intimately familiar with the plan and directly involved in its co-creation. So beginning with the project review, it's important to understand the purpose of a municipal development plan and what that document is really meant to do. Municipal development plans are statutory plans, so they're required by the province for every municipality to have. And they sit at really the top level, the highest level of statutory planning for municipalities. They don't get too deep into the details and the nitty-gritty of what's happening, but what they do is they really try to ensure that they are reflecting the values, opportunities, challenges that the municipality is facing, and sets a clear vision for the future of the municipality through policy. So a municipal development plan is really about establishing a vision and a blueprint for how the community is going to grow and develop in the future. And when we talk about growth and development, it's not just bricks and mortar, buildings and roads. It's about every facet of what makes a community a great place to live. So that includes things like the social and cultural health of the community, as well as environmental, ecological, economic, and everything in between all of those different pieces. So that being said, the purpose really of the MDP is to not just define future land uses in the municipality, but also provide strategies for managing growth across all those different elements, guiding short and long-term decision-making by both council and administration. So making sure that different departments in the municipality are also making decisions based on what the plan recommends and says should happen. And then more largely, shaping the overall development and future of all of our communities in Wood Buffalo. In terms of where the project is at right now, this is the third phase of engagement that we've taken part in. This is the engagement that we call finalized because to date, we've previously had an engagement about visioning. So going out to the public in September and October of 2020, when we asked a lot of questions about what Wood Buffalo residents see as the future of their municipality, what they would like to see changed and what they already like, and what we should focus on as we pivot from the older 2011 MDP to this newer reimagined idea of where the municipality should go. Taking the feedback that we received from that phase of engagement, as well as a lot of the background research and analysis work that was completed by the project team and the planning and development team, we then came back out to the public in February of 2021 with what we called the directions engagement. So in this phase of engagement, we presented a draft vision and some draft key goals and big moves that we were contemplating incorporating into the new MDP. And these were derived again from that visioning, the background research and analysis that had already been done. And with that feedback that we received from that engagement, then proceeded over the past year to work again very closely with the planning and development team and really the entire municipality to create the draft document that is now publicly available for review right now. So far, in the previous two phases of engagement, we've reached out to just under 1,500 members of the general public and almost 500 Indigenous partners and stakeholders. And those numbers come from a whole range of different tactics and methods for gathering information and feedback. So we've held over 77 workshops now. Those have occurred in person and virtually as COVID restrictions have allowed. We've had virtual open houses such as this one tonight, as well as a number of in-person open houses as, again, restrictions allowed. And there have been a number of online tools that we've piloted and used throughout the course of engagement to ensure that we're getting feedback through methods such as surveys or interactive maps and things as simple as discussion forums. Since the last phase of engagement, the directions phase that occurred last February, there have been a number of key changes and shifts that we've worked to incorporate into the draft MDP document that's available for review now. And this is 6 of probably the largest and most impacting changes that have been incorporated. And the first and foremost is this idea of including reconciliation with Indigenous partners as a top-level goal in the MDP. This was something we'd always contemplated including in the document, but it was received loud and clear, not just from Indigenous partners, but also from the public and different stakeholder groups, that this is something that's important enough that it really should be elevated to that high-level goal in the document. There was also a clear desire expressed to ensure that the MDP document's goals were not repetitious and that they had clear direction. So making sure that when the document said something, it said it clearly and that it didn't repeat itself over and over. It said what it needed to say and then moved on. So this is something we worked very hard to do throughout the development of the document to make sure that it was saying only the most important things. We also revisited the vision for those of you who would have joined us in previous public webinars or reviewed the previous engagement materials. One of the recurring themes was that the vision statement, it missed the mark in terms of being more clear and making sure we're not repetitious. There was some feelings that maybe that's what we were doing with the vision. So we've reworked that and we've really clarified the way that it's framed and the way that it really embraces and envelops the entire document to make sure that it's pointing in the same direction as everything else we're saying. The Blue and Green Network were big moves that were well regarded by almost every single group that we talked to during the last phase of engagement. And that's that idea of sensitively activating and engaging more with the beautiful natural amenities, outdoors, and wilderness that exists all throughout Wood Buffalo. So this is something that we've really sought to emphasize as a priority in the MDP draft now. And then the final two key direction shifts that occurred because of the phase 2 engagement in particular was committing to improved communication and collaboration with our rural Indigenous partners. That's closely aligned with the reconciliation goal, but also looks a little more broadly at the full suite of rural hamlets and communities in the region. And then aligning with existing economic development initiatives, including the Blaze Brand strategy, in what we present with the document. And it goes actually above and beyond just economic development initiatives, but truly what we've done over the past year is sought to make sure that this MDP is closely aligned with the full suite and range of initiatives and directives that the municipality and its partners are undertaking. So where the MDP says something, we've sought very hard to make sure that it is saying the same thing as other organizations and departments and corporations are saying when it comes to whatever thing it's speaking about. So that provides an overview of the engagement in the plan project to date. I'm now going to move over to actually discussing the MDP plan itself. So if you haven't had a chance already, on the Participate Wood Buffalo website, there is a link where you can download the entire draft MDP. I'm sure one of the RMWB staff on the call this evening will be able to share that in the link. And on the website as well, you'll be able to find very brief and succinct overviews of some of the major highlights of the plan, as well as individual policy sections if there are only specific goal areas that you're interested in. So as we progress through my discussion about the plan components here, you'll notice that they are organized by individual goal. There's 6 goals total. You do have the ability, if you don't have time to read the entire MDP, to focus only on the goals that you're most interested in or that you feel are most impactful, and then provide us feedback even just on those individual pieces that you review. The way that the MDP is organized overall is exactly what you see here on the screen. It starts with a vision, breaks that down into goals, and then from there provides strategic directions, initiatives, policies, and performance metrics. And the reason for this framework is to be able to very articulately describe the desired future state of the municipality through the vision. So say at that highest level, here is where and what Wood Buffalo aspires to be in the future. And then with the goals, provide tangible outcomes for that plan to achieve. So the goals are high-level ideas that correspond and directly interact with the vision to add a little bit more texture to where the MDP thinks the municipality should go. Underneath each of those goals are strategic directions, and these are the components of the plan that start translating the goals into actual actions. So saying that where a goal will convey a high-level idea, strategic directions will say, and here's how we're going to do it. And then underneath that are the key initiatives and the policies themselves. These represent the actual statutory statements, so the legalese, for lack of a better word, that makes the MDP what it is. And key initiatives and policies are really the same thing, but what you'll hear me discussing over the next several slides are largely the key initiatives, and these are the biggest ideas and the most important actions that the municipality is committing to undertaking as part of this new MDP. Once we get through all of those, as I mentioned in the agenda, we'll also briefly discuss the performance metrics. So how to successfully implement the plan and make sure that it's doing so. And this is just a best practice in strategic planning nowadays. If we aren't finding ways to evaluate how our plan is doing, then we won't know if the plan is doing what it's supposed to do. So we need to ensure that that is a critical component of the plan going forward, so that RMWB administration can report back to council and the public on how successful the plan has been or hasn't been, and what should be done in that case to tweak it and revise it. So the first goal of the MDP is home and belonging. And the idea behind the home and belonging goal is that all residents of Wood Buffalo, no matter who they are, where they're from, should feel as if this is a place where they truly belong, where they're valued, and where they should want to call their home for as long as may be. There are 5 key initiatives that the MDP commits to as part of this home and belonging goal, and I'll briefly run through each of them here. And again, I'd encourage anyone who has any comments or questions about them to use the chat function to make sure that we have a collated list of all those that we can then respond to as we get through the presentation. The first key initiative is developing and implementing region-wide design guidelines. And by design guidelines, this is really meant to encompass a wide-ranging spectrum of different design elements. So this could mean things like winter city design guidelines, so ensuring that the municipality is embracing the fact that it is a 4-season municipality, designing with considerations to how different buildings or parks or spaces will function in the winter as much as in the summertime. But it can also incorporate ideas such as universal design, so making sure that Wood Buffalo is continuously moving towards a place where it's more accessible for all members of society in whichever term of accessibility we may be speaking of. The second key initiative is reviewing and revising the land use bylaw to encourage and facilitate mixed use development. This is a reaction to the way that we see the development industry moving, not just in Wood Buffalo, but also throughout Alberta and across Canada. Newer forms of housing are beginning to become more and more the norm in the way that that builders and developers like to maximize the utility of their land. So making sure that Wood Buffalo's land use bylaw is set up in a way that allows for these forms of development where appropriate, without requiring unnecessary amendments or unnecessary bureaucratic challenges, is something that will be very helpful to promote and encourage these forms of development as they take hold in the municipality. The third key initiative is committing sustained funding for implementation of the social sustainability plan. This is something that we heard was very important to a number of different stakeholder groups as well as members of the public. So this is making sure the municipality continues to maintain its commitment to this ongoing initiative. Developing and implementing an active transportation master plan is the fourth key initiative. And with this, the intention is to create a plan and a planning framework that outlines how investments in active transportation should best be made. So what the MDP does not do, because it is, again, a high-level statutory document, is say where exactly active transportation investment should go. That's too detailed for this level of plan. But what the plan does do is say that this is a very important thing for the municipality to be looking at. And this is a planning exercise that the municipality should endeavor to undertake, again, through the lens of ensuring that all residents of Wood Buffalo feel that this is a place where they belong, they can get around, and can call their home for the longer term. The final key initiative for home and belonging is this idea of developing an equity, diversity, and inclusion policy for the municipality. And again, this stems largely from a lot of the public feedback and stakeholder engagement that was undertaken in February of last year. There was a very concerted interest in seeing this kind of an idea and this kind of a policy being created and brought forward for review by the public and council. And that's why we see it here included in the MDP's key initiatives. The second goal of the MDP is economic growth and innovation. Underneath this goal, there's three key initiatives, and the larger picture idea for this goal in the MDP is to ensure that the municipality is looking at the economy with not two different lenses, but I'll say with two eyes. One to the existing industries in the municipality, so ensuring that they're being supported, that they're being provided opportunities to grow and be successful, but then also looking forward to the future and recognizing there's a tremendous amount of talent and a tremendous amount of highly educated individuals and highly entrepreneurial individuals in Wood Buffalo who, as continued innovations and changes in technology occur, had the wherewithal and the abilities to seize them and create new and exciting opportunities in Wood Buffalo. So to support those dual interests, these three key initiatives, I'll start with the first one, propose developing and implementing an ease of doing business plan in the municipality. So the idea behind an ease of doing business plan is largely about ensuring that the municipality, to the greatest extent of its abilities, is aligned with business growth, investment in the existing industry, but then also creating a landscape and an environment where new businesses and emerging ideas can also take root and easily expand and grow. So there are a number of different ways that Wood Buffalo can support this. Sometimes it means taking a step back. Sometimes it means taking a more active role. But through undertaking the exercise of preparing this plan and collaborating with other stakeholders, such as the Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo Economic Development and Tourism Corporation, this plan will hopefully be a catalyst for inspiring more investment and increased economic activity in the municipality. The second key initiative under this goal is to expedite development approvals for downtown plan aligned new or expanding businesses. And this actually, as you get into the MDP, expands beyond just downtown plan aligned, but all statutory plan aligned and strategic plan aligned businesses. So the idea here is that where something is well aligned and has demonstrated that it is well aligned with the municipality's goals and objectives, these should be the projects that the municipality then prioritizes and ensures get approved as quickly as safely and reasonably possible, because these are the things the municipality has already said that it wants to see happen. So this is an exercise again, and just making sure that where strategic plans and municipal plans and statutory plans exist and recommend certain things, when those certain things are then brought forward, they're enabled as to the greatest extent possible. The final key initiative for this goal is investigating creating a business incubator. And this doesn't just mean investigating creating a business incubator, but also fostering and supporting that which already exists in the municipality. So in the MDP, if you were to open up the document, you'll notice that it does reference Startup YMM. That is an incubator that already exists, but again, as a high-level statutory plan that looks kind of in the 10 to 20 plus year window. This key initiative is here to ensure that no matter how the future may develop and no matter how Startup YMM and other local businesses transition and develop over time, the municipality remains committed to this idea of fostering local businesses and fostering entrepreneurialism in Wood Buffalo. The third goal in the MDP is reconciliation. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a new addition from the last time we would have met and discussed with the public in February of last year. And this stems directly from the feedback that we heard from the public, stakeholders, and our Indigenous partners throughout the municipality. Underneath this goal, there's three key initiatives that the municipality is committing to implementing. And largely, these are things that are already being undertaken. But this is about ensuring the MDP remains committed and the municipality remains committed to these ongoing initiatives over the lifespan of the plan. The first key initiative is about continuing the Reconciliation Advisory Circle. The advisory circle was implemented as a response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to actions and report that was issued, I believe, in 2016. This is something that has already had a tremendous amount of impact in the municipality, and the intention here is to ensure that it continues to exist and continues to be supported in its initiatives and activities by the municipality. The second key initiative is to undertake an assessment of implementing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People as the framework for the municipality's response to truth and reconciliation. This is, again, an ongoing piece that also ties into the agreements with all of Wood Buffalo's all of Wood Buffalo's Indigenous partners throughout the municipality. So what that looks like is still something that's being molded and crafted as the MDP moves forward to the council review. But in general, there is this sense that there needs to be an ongoing commitment to developing relationships and confirming them on a individual partner by partner basis with the municipality. And the final key initiative is coordinating a traditional land use and place name study for the entire municipality. This is, again, a piece that requires a little further discussion. There are sensitivities around traditional land use studies, what they may say or may not say, and how they are employed. But at a broad level, the idea behind this, and particularly the place name study work, is well supported and has been identified by Indigenous partners and other stakeholders and members of the public as something worth doing and incorporating in the municipality. The fourth goal is celebrating community and culture. The intention of this goal is to tell the story of Wood Buffalo a little bit better, and to really double down and emphasize and prioritize the amazing things that Wood Buffalo already is, and that residents of Wood Buffalo already realize that Wood Buffalo is. So this is things like the tremendous multiculturalism and diversity that already exists, the strong sense of community spirit, the amazing recreational amenities and assets that the Wood Buffalo has on offer. And again, just ensuring that this story about the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo, as it's told both internally and to the rest of the world, reflects the reality a little bit better, perhaps, of what actually is going on in the ground here. So there's 5 key initiatives as part of this goal that are being proposed in the MDP. The first one is investigating the designation of heritage character areas. Heritage character areas, despite the fact that I've capitalized each of the words there, they're not a specific thing in the sense of a provincial or statutory regulation. The idea behind this is for Wood Buffalo to actually investigate what is heritage character, and create a Made in Wood Buffalo solution for really recognizing and celebrating these different areas. So there's already ongoing work to really identify a lot of heritage and heritage character throughout the municipality, and the MDP commits to continuing that process and conversation as it moves forward, and finding ways to really identify, celebrate, and recognize where heritage and heritage character exists in the municipality. The second key initiative is about prioritizing Jubilee Plaza as a place to celebrate Wood Buffalo's multiculturalism and diversity. This is another one of those key initiatives that we might see mold a little bit, and that we're really interested in seeing feedback on as part of this engagement process. Prioritizing Jubilee Plaza is the placeholder right now, and that's a reflection of a lot of what we heard from the public in previous phases of engagement. But most important here is really having a place to celebrate Wood Buffalo's multiculturalism and diversity. This was an identified need from a number of stakeholder groups and members of the public in previous phases of engagement. Wood Buffalo is a place that's as diverse as Calgary or Edmonton, many of Canada's major cities. So ensuring that this tremendous multiculturalism is celebrated, recognized, and also given a bit of a dedicated home to really have that story told time and time again is something that resonated with the public. The third key initiative is investigating the creation of a temporary art program throughout Wood Buffalo. Throughout is the key operating term here. Previously, there was a lot of concern expressed from members of the public, particularly in smaller hamlets, about how investments in the arts and investments more broadly in the municipality have occurred. So ensuring that when we look at things like temporary art, that they're operating at a regional scale and a regional level is something that's really important as the municipality moves forward. The fourth key initiative is developing a community activation microgrant program. Microgrants are this idea of having a dedicated fund where individuals or organizations can go and access small amounts of money to implement one-off projects. So this could be something as simple as building an outdoor rink in your community. So if there's a hockey parent who's really keen on creating more ice so that children in the area can skate more often, they might be able to go to a program such as this and say, hey, I need $250 for a little bit of plywood and some brackets so I can create an area for freezing outdoor rinks. It can also include block parties or any other type of social or community activation. But the idea is where there are inspired and engaged community members who are willing to create exciting, fun, new, unique opportunities for social collision and activity, they should have a place where they can go and access small amounts of money so that they can create a more vibrant and exciting and welcoming Wood Buffalo. The final key initiative under celebrating community and culture is increasing youth representation in government. And this really comes back to the notion of celebrating what already makes Wood Buffalo a great place and ensuring that our youth feel a sense of ownership and engagement over the direction that their community is headed as they grow up as well. So having youth representation on committees of council, in different strategic planning initiatives, and wherever the municipality engages with the public is of tantamount importance. And the municipality already does a very good job of this. But what the MDP is seeking to do now is carry on with that good work and find even more opportunities to ensure that youth voices and youth representation exist throughout every function of the municipality. The fifth goal in the MDP is connecting to nature. These three key initiatives can really be viewed holistically. They exist on their own in terms of the way the policy is conveyed, but they truly interact with one another to provide this ability for Wood Buffalo residents and visitors to Wood Buffalo from outside of the region to better connect with nature. The first key initiative is preparing these green and blue network plans that I mentioned earlier in the meeting this evening. And these plans are really intended to create a framework and a guidebook for how the municipality will create better connections through trails and other outdoor activities and canoeing routes, wayfinding signage, etc., across all of Wood Buffalo. So enabling people to not just be able to walk from Thickwood to Timberley, but also perhaps have a trail network that could eventually become integrated all the way from the territories to the southern extents of the regional municipality. That is actually a outside of the region draw for tourism, a place where people travel across the world to experience the beauty of Wood Buffalo and all that it has to offer. As part of such a process, there would then be a need to identify and protect the most valuable ecosystems throughout Wood Buffalo as well. The picture that you'd see here on this slide is of the sand dunes in northern Wood Buffalo, and making sure that we're identifying things such as the sand dunes that are critically important, but also have a lot of potential to sensitively and appropriately be opened up a little bit more for exploration and for the enjoyment of both residents and visitors alike is an important exercise that needs to be undertaken. And then finally, there's the need to prepare and implement a wilderness development plan. So one of the ideas really leading this initiative here is the idea of creating more of a cabin country and cabin culture within Wood Buffalo. Presently, a lot of residents have to actually leave the region, go to places such as Lac La Biche in order to have a cabin in the woods or to have property that they can go to on weekends or for holidays. So developing a plan that lays a framework, not just for this cabin style of development, but also identifies areas where this kind of development may not be appropriate, is a very important starting point for future discussions with the province to open up more crown land and green land for these forms of development. And again, these three initiatives are holistically viewed. When all three of them work together, they'll collectively provide more environmental benefit, ecological benefit, and hopefully economic and tourism benefit that collectively provides more access and more ability for all Wood Buffalo residents to connect to nature. The final goal in the MDP is responsible development. And this is, for those of you who have had a chance to review the document, where you might recognize what is the most traditional elements of a municipal development plan. So this is where the land use maps are. This is where the individual hamlets, the urban service area, and the region writ large are conveyed on maps with future growth trajectories outlined on them. But the three key initiatives that you'll find embedded within the responsible development goal are first and foremost emphasizing downtown revitalization as a municipal priority. And again, this is one where we speak to downtown as a priority, but also more holistically look at the entire body of statutory plans that Wood Buffalo has adopted. There are core areas in all of the hamlets, most of the hamlets, sorry, and core areas throughout the urban service area that are also priorities for the municipality. And this responsible development goal and the policies contained therein really tries to focus on ensuring that these existing statutory plans are also respected and reinforced through this planning process. The second key initiative is about optimizing regional transit. As the global pandemic and other emerging technological innovations, such as Uber, for example, have continued to develop, the ways that we engage with our transit have changed, and there are new and emerging best practices that Wood Buffalo can learn from other parts of the world, but also made in Wood Buffalo solutions that are required to ensure that this investment in regional transit is providing the best returns it can. So this is a key initiative, just recognizing that the world around us is changing and that it's always best practice to ensure that we're looping back and optimizing our services as appropriate. And then the final key initiative in this goal is to institute disaster risk management in municipal decision making. This might seem a little obvious, but again, this is about ensuring the MDP contains language that commits to doing this on a longer term and as the municipality grows and progresses over the next 10 to 20 years. So that is the 6 goals and the key initiatives of the MDP at a high level. Again, we'll have an opportunity to have a bit of a Q&A and discussion around the plan content following the conclusion of this presentation. But I just wanted to overview real briefly. I'll be going over how the implementation of the MDP will work, providing an overview of the next steps, and then following that will be our opportunity to engage in a bit more dialogue. However, at any point in time, again, there is that chat function that you can click on and provide your comments that way, and then we'll be able to go through them as we get to the end of the presentation. In terms of how the MDP will actually be implemented or the making it happen of the plan, there's 2 core components that we're including in this document. So the first is the prioritization of the key initiatives. So again, all of those key initiatives that I just discussed, they need to be prioritized by council and a framework and a bit of a roadmap laid out for how and when they will actually be implemented and turned into tangible projects. And then the second piece of implementation surrounds this idea of performance metrics and plan evaluation. So these provide a way to measure the successful implementation of the MDP, but also to identify areas where perhaps the MDP isn't being as successful as anticipated, or where small tweaks or changes can be made to improve the overall performance of the document. So for the prioritization of the key initiatives, this is something that is being actively discussed with council. There's a relatively new council that was recently elected, and it's very important to ensure that the key initiatives that they think are most important are being appropriately prioritized through strategic planning. So once the MDP is brought back to council for their review, the MDP will, through this prioritization section, identify the key initiatives that should be prioritized both now and those that are perhaps less important and should be approached later on in the timeline of the MDP. So the MDP will have a high-level timeline for when and how each key initiative should be implemented, but will also, again, this is important, identify the roles and responsibilities for ensuring that the key initiatives are successfully implemented. So as you'll have noticed as we went through all those key initiatives, there are quite a few that require strategic partnerships. So making sure that the responsibilities for fostering those partnerships and engaging with partners at an appropriate level of detail occurs is also a critical part of making sure that the plan is implemented successfully. For the performance metrics, again, these are about making sure that there are targets and triggers that are clearly identified for when municipal action or review of the MDP is required. This also allows administration to report back to council on the effectiveness and success of the MDP at established frequencies of time. And this is, again, just a best practice in strategic planning nowadays. Making sure that the MDP is doing what it's supposed to do is important. And if it's not, we need to know that and we need to be able to address it. So at present, you'll notice in the draft MDP, if you've had a chance to look at it, or when you go back after this presentation and look at it and participate with Buffalo, that we've provided a list, a fairly substantive list of performance indicators and metrics, really, nested under each of the 6 MDP goals. The intention of the final MDP will be to narrow this list down to probably 2 to 5 of the most impactful and meaningful metrics for each of the goals. There's a risk in providing too much analysis and too many metrics, in creating unnecessary work and an amount of performance review that maybe isn't necessarily as dialed in to plan effectiveness as it could be. So we don't want to have too many metrics, but we also need to make sure that where we do have them, they're telling us very tangible and very meaningful information about how the plan is or is not performing. Another important piece about these performance metrics is this fact that they've been broken down into individual goals. So what this allows us to do moving forward as well is see where sections of the plan are being successful and where individual plan sections are not. So in a world where 10 years from now, we find that economic growth, responsible growth, home of belonging, and reconciliation are working really, really well, but maybe celebrating culture and connecting to nature are not doing quite as well. Administration and the planning and development team can go back and they can propose recommendations, and they can review only these 2 sections. The things that are working, they can leave alone, and they can propose recommended changes for only the things that aren't working. This allows the MDP to largely remain intact and to not require wholesale revisions and rewrites of the MDP whenever there's a perceived issue with individual components within it. So again, this is about finding efficiencies in the plan and also making it the most impactful and useful document possible. So with that, I'll move over to the next steps of the MDP project. I'll tell you where we're going, and then after that, we'll open it up for a discussion and again, take questions from the audience. In terms of the next steps for the project team, so that's myself with O2 and then the planning and development team led by Shailesh and such, we have to finalize the MDP. So we're engaged in this public engagement throughout the month of February and into March. And with all of the feedback that we receive from the public, Indigenous partners, stakeholders, and council, we'll be revising and finalizing the MDP document to bring to council sometime in the spring of 2022. On the public side of things, this is the final phase of engagement. So you can provide your feedback in a number of different ways and be involved in the process in a number of different ways. There's an online survey that's available now. You can also complete that survey via Pulse, so calling that phone number that you see in the sign there. There is the draft document online on the Participate with Buffalo platform, and we also encourage you to review that document and you provide your feedback either through that portal or directly to the project team through the contact information that you'll find on the Participate with Buffalo platform. Notwithstanding that, this phase of engagement ends on March 13th is our tentative date right now. And then the next opportunity for the public following the conclusion of this phase of engagement will be the public hearing when council actually does review the document in spring of 2022. So there will be public notices that go out for that. And at that point in time, members of the public, stakeholders, Indigenous partners, everyone will have an opportunity then to make deputations to council to tell council how they feel about the plan. So this concludes the presentation on the MDP. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to Megan so I can have a quick drink of water. But again, we encourage you to submit your questions through the question feature, or at this point, you can also use the hand raising function as well, and we'll be able to see if you have anything that you'd like to say. Thanks. Megan, over to you.
Thanks so much, Nick, and take that well-deserved drink of water. That was a lot of information that we just went through. So thank you so much for diving deep into that. So we definitely understand that's a lot of context to go through that we just provided, but we are now definitely hoping to respond to some of your questions. But do be mindful that the public engagement is occurring until March 13th. So if you do need more time to review all the information, that can all be found on rmwb.ca/MDP. And there's also an online survey. If in a couple of days you're thinking through and have some questions or have feedback, that's where you can have that information, is in the online survey, where you can really provide your feedback on specific aspects of the draft plan. So if you haven't already, I see a couple of dots happening in the chat. So please feel free to put some questions in the chat, and the team's happy to answer your questions. But we do have a hand raised. So we have Sam. If you want to disable your microphone, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much, Megan. I just had a quick question. As a youth from Fort McMurray, we mentioned in the MDP something about increasing youth representation in government, and I was just wondering about if you had any insight onto the programs on which how we plan on implementing that, or how we actually plan on increasing that representation of youth.
Thanks so much for that question, Sam, and thanks for being here. Nick, did you want to take that one, or did you want to let Such answer?
I can provide a first response, and then if anyone else in the project team wants to add a little more color, they're more than welcome to do so. Thanks, Sam, for the question. This is something that's really near and dear and important to the municipality, both from an administration and from a political standpoint. So you're raising a great question. In terms of the actual content in the plan that speaks to how youth representation will be increased, there's a number of different angles that the MDP takes. Off the top of my head, some of the ones that I think are kind of interesting is there's a real desire and emphasis on actually using administration. And the fact that there is this municipal corporate body as a tool to actually get youth in the region into government, and really seeing how not just the political side of things works, but also the back end of things works. So that can be having municipal employees going into schools as their timelines allow them, and to actually present on the work that they do for the municipality and take questions from youth, and really open and use size in some ways to what the municipality actually does on a day-to-day side of things is one of them. As kind of a follow-up piece to that, there's also language around increasing opportunities for internships and opportunities to work with the municipality as a youth. So hiring more youth and hiring youth into positions where they can see futures for themselves working with and for the municipality. On the other side of things, so moving away from administration, but more towards that political side, there's policy language as well about increasing youth representation on council-appointed committees in particular. So making sure that there is representation for identified age brackets, for example, to be included wherever they do apply on these committees. So that way youth voice and youth representation is heard, no matter what the committee may be. So not just McCoy, although McCoy does really, really interesting work. That's the Mayor's Advisory Council on Youth, but actually making sure that there are youth voices throughout the entire municipality's range of different committees is another way that we can increase and incorporate youth more directly into the political and the government process. Those are the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. I'll open it up again to the rest of the team if there's any other thoughts they'd like to share about how we're increasing youth representation through this document.
I'd like to quickly jump in here. Thank you, Nick, for that answer. It's you covered most of it. We've throughout the process of preparation of MDP, we've consulted with a number of stakeholders, and something that's very, very important, and some groups give you the the ideas that you yourself as professionals cannot think, because they offer you a perspective that you've never been open to. In talking to committees like McCoy, members of that committee have given us perspectives that we as adults would have never thought of. And I want to give a huge shout out to all the members of McCoy because of their participation in this project. I mean, we've engaged with them 2 or 3 times until now, and every time we've engaged with them, they offer a perspective that we cannot really think of by ourselves. Being adults, we do not go into details of its and bits of a few things. And that's why the idea of involving youth into more committees came about. And through the policies, MDP, what it does is it gives you the policies through which you can increase representation of youth in different committees, in different aspects, and different organizational structures of the municipality. And that's what we've been trying to do through this policy. The whole idea is, to get a new perspective, a fresh perspective on different issues, different problems the municipality is facing, and to offer creative solutions to those problems. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you both. Sam, I hope that answers your question, but if you have more, please, again, feel free to raise your hand and we would be more than happy to respond to it. But thank you very much for that question. Go ahead, Sam.
No, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It's quite the insight. Just to follow up with the youth question, I do plan on actually applying. So the internships that you mentioned are very lucrative for myself. But just to further that just a little bit, I had more of a question on the incentive programs that you or the MDP might have in place for youth to stay in the region to further. I know that we mentioned a lot about the cultural diversity and celebrating that, and that's a huge aspect to it. But anything more that you could have, or maybe some other programs or incentives that would, allow the youth to, be more engaged, or to, incentivize to actually stay in the region and work for the development. Anything. But once again, thank you. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for that follow-up question. It's another really important thing that the MDP needs to address, right? What is a municipality doing to help create and foster an environment where there is opportunity and youth can see a future for themselves in not just Fort McMurray, but all of Wood Buffalo? It's also a challenging piece, and this is maybe not the most fun answer, but it's a challenging piece because municipal development plans are those high-level strategic documents. So the MDP does include a lot of language about relationship building and collaboration with groups such as, Keano College, to make sure that there's expanded programs and opportunities for receiving all sorts of different educations that will enable youth to stay in the region. So meaning people don't necessarily have to leave Wood Buffalo to get a post-secondary education. It also looks like the municipality engaging in more relationship building with industry, both existing established industries, but also some of the newer and more emerging industries, a burgeoning tech sector, for example, to ensure that they're fostering opportunities and supported in their initiatives to create roles and spaces for youth and new graduates in their businesses. There's not a lot of the municipality will commit to this program or this specific funding revenue in the municipal development plan, just because it is a document that needs to last for 20 years. So it's really difficult for it to say we will do this specific thing absolutely. And that's the challenge of the MDP, is it operates at a slightly higher level than those on-the-ground solutions. But again, through creating a policy framework and an environment that says youth are a priority and we need to invest in this and we need to focus on this, what the MDP does do is it gives administration, so individuals like Such, who is just speaking, the language and the tools to then be able to go to council and say, hey, this is something that's important to us, we're committing to it, here's a new idea, or here's a new opportunity, or here's money that just became available from Edmonton or from Ottawa that we can use to actually foster more of these things in the community. And that's where the MDP can become a powerful tool, by saying the right things and really outlining actions, partnerships, collaborations that we want to see happen. It then allows administration and council to make decisions that reflect that. Does that help answer that question, or were you looking for a little more specific detail, Sam?
No, you've definitely answered my question. I understand the comprehensive component to this, like, municipal development plan. I understand that like you said, the on-ground solutions may not be as evident, but because I can very evidently see that you guys are creating that framework for policy, so things will follow. So I really appreciate that. So thank you for that insight, Nicholas. Really appreciate that.
No, thank you. And your involvement in stuff like this is what keeps people's feet to the fire, right? When people are asking questions like this and saying, hey, where's the opportunity? That's what you got to do, right?
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Megan, I noticed that we had Aaron typing and then not typing and then typing and then not typing. I'm wondering if you have a question or a comment, would you be willing to share that over the voice, or have they disappeared?
Yeah, do a summary of it, if that's appropriate. So it says, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to engage. In July of 2020, I moved to Fort McMurray and I call this town my new home. I was pleasantly surprised by the wild and beauty and warmth of the people here. Yes, it's warm people. Sometimes it's very frigid outside, but the people are warm. Being an avid tennis player, I had gotten involved in equally avid tennis enthusiasts in Fort McMurray. When the tennis enthusiasts of this town lack is an indoor tennis playing facility so that we can continue to play throughout the year. I believe the 50-odd tennis player enthusiasts could easily double or more with an indoor facility. As part of your Home and Belonging initiative, is it possible for you to consider the possibility of an indoor tennis facility? If so, could we work together to come with a plan to have sustain such a facility? I'm looking for a forum and opportunity to present a business case to the municipality. Thank you so much for that question. Is that something, Nick, you wanted to just speak to in regards to a facility like that?
Yeah, I can provide a bit of an MDP type answer for how that I think fits into the plan, and then it might be that there's people in P&D who planning and development, who can provide a little more context for how rec works in Wood Buffalo and what that would look like from an activation standpoint. From the way the MDP is set up, this is something that is really well aligned with initiatives like that community activation grant, like the micro grants that I mentioned in the presentation. So something that we really are trying to do with the MDP is create more avenues, more forums, more opportunities for members of the public with exciting, cool, great ideas and the energy and the passion behind them to back them up. To be activated, to let them happen, to take the opportunity and run with it. So I would say the MDP is setting up a framework and really helping the municipality to ensure that it's focusing on enabling and empowering exciting opportunities such as the one that you brought forward. So I think the answer in terms of an MDP perspective is it's not necessarily the document again that would say we need specifically an indoor tennis facility and it should go here. But what the MDP does do is it says there are people out there who are really passionate about certain things, and we need to make sure that we're giving them the tools and the opportunity to really act on those things. In terms of what the municipality can do to help support people who are looking to get an indoor tennis facility built, is that Such again? Who's the best person to turn it over to?
I think so. Such, could you make context to that?
Absolutely. So thank you, Aaron, for that question once again. It is a great question. And I like Nick, I would like to explain you a little bit about how the MDP works. It gives you the basis for you to make that argument. Once the MDP recognizes that there are, like Nick mentioned, community activation program. Once the MDP has policies like that, it gives you the possibility of going in front of council and asking council to construct something like that, and that gets supported through the MDP policies. Once the plan gets approved by the council, then council, in essence, has acknowledged, that there are recreational facilities that can add value to the community. And based on municipalities' partnership with Regional Rec Corporation, RRC, we call it, then a municipality and RRC could work together to develop a facility like that. So the value or the role of MDP in terms of developing facilities like that is to give you the policies, the foundation on which you can go and ask council or the municipality itself to create facilities such as an indoor tennis facility. And through the MDP, that aspect of creating more recreational facilities in the region, creating more indoor facilities in the region is covered. So that's where I'd like to give you some information about how can you go about asking for more recreational facilities or indoor facilities in the region. Does that help?
Oh, thank you, Sach and Nicholas, for that. That is quite apt, I think, because I am very keen on that to make this my home as well as other people who are here. And as you may know, I mean, though Canada is known as a hockey playing nation, suddenly tennis has become in the forefront. We have world-class players. And having stayed in 15 years in Calgary, and I see 3 indoor facilities and producing a lot of good players.
Right.
And I see that potential here, especially if we engage our schools. That's the way they do it in Calgary.
Right.
We can generate a lot of interest so that they're fully engaged during winter as well. And I have had a number of meetings with our own people, with the tennis enthusiasts. They are very, very keen and then ready to come forward, volunteer to have a sustaining program there. It's
Right.
just the question of having a forum where we could regularly meet and make this plan work, right? So, and engaging the companies here, they may have the money as well. So it's not too expensive, but it's not cheap as well. It's not
Right.
$250, right? It's something more substantial. But if you have a facility, it's a legacy you're leaving for the future, and the people will come. And I, for one, I would like to play tennis throughout my year, so I would like to have something here, right? So I think that's my piece on that. I think I really welcome that you listen to me on this.
Absolutely.
But I would hope that we can continue this conversation and put some wheels on the plan as well.
Absolutely, Arun. I think this MDP, this document, sort of gives you the foundation to ask for facilities like that. Once you have this engraved in the development plans of the municipality, it's much more easy to just go to municipality and just say, this is something that you've already recognized. This is something that's engraved in your plans for the future. Why not create something? There are 50 people or 100 people who are willing to participate in a sport like that, and you have the money, you have been offering grants and whatnot. And so it gives you a much better business case in that sense. But the idea of this plan is to give you that ability to go and ask, municipality to, give you facilities like that. And that's what the role of this MDP is.
Yeah, just to fill you in, I was a secretary of the Calgary Tennis Club, which is a 100-year-old facility there, and the whole that's located in a place called Sunalta in Calgary, and it's an open. They play in the summer, but the money is granted by the municipality there to look
Right.
after that. The club
Right.
looks after the whole facility. But what we need is, we do have excellent outdoor courts here, but what do we need is an indoor facility. Either you put a bubble over it, or I have a green field facility with right from the bottom up, and that kind of a stick-built facility also can be thought of. So,
Right.
but I'm trying to initiate that conversation so that it doesn't end here with this meeting, so that I have some kind of a lead to take on, right? So that we can keep watering that sapling.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate your idea, because questions like these allow us to think beyond what is standard practices in the municipality. And so I really want to thank you for this question. I mean, of course, the conversation is not going to end here. It's going to continue. But the purpose of this plan is to give you that platform to, go ahead and ask for more.
Thank you. Thank you for your listening ears. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
If I could add one more thing to that as well, I'm just going to put into the chat our pulse line as well as the website, which has the email. It's information like that that's really important for the municipality to know from residents, to see what facilities people are interested in or specific items around town, such as, for example, community gardens. So I would highly encourage you to contact the pulse line. That way they can track it. Number one, our Pulse customer service representatives are able to track that, so that when we do reporting on a yearly basis, we can see the information we're getting from residents. And number two, they would be able to forward that to the appropriate representative within the municipality. So I encourage you to do that so you can continue on this conversation.
Thank you, Megan, for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions while we have you on camera?
I'm good. I think I will just encourage to do excellent work. We are progressing here in Fort Mac. I think it's such a beautiful place. I think it's a gem here, and it's probably much guarded secret that we have a beauty here. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being involved tonight and passionate towards our community. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Before we get into some other questions that we have that we wanted to get to today, I wanted to just raise the opportunity if anyone else would like to turn their camera on, ask the team questions. That's what we're here for tonight. We'd be more than happy to respond to questions, or if you feel more comfortable, go ahead and provide it in the chat. Either is available for you to or unmute yourself. We're here to answer your questions. So with that, Such, I wanted to just give a very simple, we kind of covered it, well, Nick covered it, but just to give a high level, what is an MDP and why are we updating the one from 2011?
Sure. Thank you, Megan. I can give you some information regarding that. So a municipal development plan is basically a plan that guides municipality how growth and development will occur in this municipality for the next 20 years. It's a plan that's required to be prepared by every municipality through legislation in Alberta. Every municipality, previously it was every municipality that has a population of over 3,500 people was required to prepare a municipal development plan, but now the legislation has changed and every municipality should have a municipal development plan. In our case, we had a plan that was prepared in 2011, which targeted a population of about 230,000 people by 2030. The plan itself was prepared in 2011, so in a span of 20 years, it aspired to go from 70,000 people to 230,000 people. Through the course of time, some unfortunate events have occurred in our region, wildfires, floods, and whatnot. Also, financially, in terms of dipping of oil prices, has affected our region in different ways, not the most favorable ones. And so we have not seen the growth that was anticipated in the 2011 plan. We were targeting to become the third largest urban center in Alberta, which obviously didn't happen. And so, because of that, a lot of infrastructure has been created. We've overbuilt, so to say. We've spent a lot of money on infrastructure, and now we're at a situation where the population is not growing, but we've spent so much money on infrastructure development. This plan was really an idea that came about after our evaluation of how the previous plan was working. As a part of planning exercise, we evaluate or monitor the performance of a previous plan. And through that exercise, we were able to sort of evaluate that the plan is not working the way it should have. And hence the idea of revising the current municipal development plan. The good thing about this plan is it does not focus on population growth. It does not focus on growth at all. In fact, it focuses more on people. The previous plan was more about growth, growth, growth. We need to become big. We need to think big. We need to have big ideas. We are going to become a boom town and whatnot. This plan, the one that we are preparing, is not aspiring to become big. It is aspiring to provide a better quality of life to the people that are already here. It is aspiring to retain the population that's already here. It's aspiring to make Wood Buffalo and Fort McMurray the best of places that it can be. So there's a shift in ideology of preparation of plan. From growth to quality of life is what we're targeting in this plan. So I think that sort of provides you with a little bit of brief about what's different in the previous plan and this one. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions regarding this new one.
Thanks so much, Sach. I know we've been doing this engagement for 3 phases, but it is a good reminder just to provide an overview of, really why we're here and what an MDP does. And then as well as I know we get a lot of questions of, why do we have to provide an updated MDP? But like you stated, in 2011, there was a lot of different things happening socially, economically within our region. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So again, I'll encourage everyone to provide any questions or comments. We are more than happy to collect comments through this virtual open house as well. If you have recommendations or thoughts in regards to the draft. And I did want to mention too that the information can be found on rmwb.ca/MDP. The full draft is within that website, as well as a breakdown of the goals that were discussed tonight in the presentation. And we have a great highlights page on there to just give you a high level summary if you don't want to have a deep dive into the draft. So my next question, I'm going to go over to Nick, if that's okay. And with residents on the phone tonight, I just wanted to ask the question, how does the MDP relate to residents? And I know within our summary page, we have a really good indicators of that, but if you can kind of provide some high level reasons of why an MDP would relate to residents within the region.
Thanks for that question, Megan. The MDPs, as we've already discussed a little bit with some of the questions that we've engaged with here this evening, they set the framework that really guides where the municipality is going towards. So they create a bit of a blueprint and a guidebook for how administration and council will both make their decisions in the short and the long term. So it doesn't interact with residents necessarily on the day-to-day, piece-to-piece individual components of how Wood Buffalo functions. But what it does do is at that really high level, it says what's important to Wood Buffalo residents and what are the opportunities that we should be seizing to make life better for them, and what are the challenges that we need to be addressing to make sure that they continue to live happy, exciting, successful lives here in the municipality. So it really is an interesting exercise in plan making, because you need to be able to anticipate a lot of those individual pieces that really matter to individuals, but then not create too much policy or get too much in the way of it to stop it from happening. You need to create a framework that does exist at almost a 10,000 foot level and can speak to all of Wood Buffalo all at once. Does that do a good job of capturing the essence of the MDP?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Nick. It is really a community plan. We know it's a high level document, but we have a video that's going to be going out for promotion for engagement, and it's saying, tell your friends, tell your family, even tell your pets. The more people we can get engaged for this project, the better, so that we can create that community and regional plan that we will be having for the next 20 years. So thanks, Nick. If it's okay, I'll go back to you for another question. And that's, we're kind of talking about it again, talking about the region and how we're utilizing items within our region currently, and how growth was so important for 2011. But could you kind of hone into that community-based approach and why it's so important for the environment that we're in right now currently in Wood Buffalo?
Absolutely. That ties in a little bit to what we've already heard this evening as well. Aaron mentioned that he chose to move to Fort McMurray because of the opportunities and the lifestyle it provides, and that once he moved here, he recognized that the access to nature and the backyard and the community that already exists here is a pretty compelling and awesome thing. So a lot of why we're looking at pivoting away from this exponential growth-based model towards one that is more place and community-based approached is a recognition of so many of the things that Wood Buffalo was already doing right, and so many of the things that already make Wood Buffalo a really great place to live. When we talk about improving quality of life in the municipality, that's not really coming from a deficit model perspective. We're not saying, oh, things aren't good here. We're mostly saying things are pretty good, but let's make them even better. So where people have exciting and innovative ideas, let's let them run with it. Where there are ways that we can provide even better access for people to all the amazing amenities and resources that we have in the municipality, let's act on those and improve them and increase them. And that's not to say that a place and community-based approach ignores challenges or issues, because the MDP, I think, does do a pretty good job of recognizing where there are struggles and where there might be things that the municipality really needs to take a look at going forward. But at its heart, it really is about saying, you know what, this is a pretty special place with some pretty special people. Let's take advantage of that and tell our story a little bit better.
We are pretty special, absolutely. Thank you.
I can sympathize. Sorry to cut you off with the not sympathize rather, but I can connect with Aaron. I'm based out of Calgary with O2, and the first time we were up in Fort McMurray for this project, you truly get a sense of the beauty of the nature and the landscapes you're in. The river valley is spectacular. It really is a beautiful place. I get it.
Yeah, not to mention the birch trails we have. Great to run through. So I'm going to keep going with you, Nick. And again, everyone on the call, feel free to provide your questions in the chat or raise your hand. But if you could kind of walk us through. So we went over the goals tonight, the 6 goals of what will be included in the MDP, and that really sets the tone for the document. Could you just explain how those goals would be implemented throughout that 20-year span?
Definitely. Towards the end of the presentation, we talked a lot about the implementation framework. So this idea of prioritization of key initiatives. And at the end of the day, the key initiatives are those key central pieces of the MDP that really outline and demonstrate the actions that the municipality is going to take. It commits Wood Buffalo to doing several different things in each goal. And the way that those things will be implemented comes down to that prioritization piece we discussed. So there's still conversations ongoing with council to identify what the most important initiatives are. And through those conversations, we'll be able to develop a high-level timeline for when and how each of those key initiatives should be implemented. And as I mentioned before as well, one of the important pieces behind that isn't just saying we'll do this in this year and then we'll do this thing in this year. It's also an exercise in identifying who needs to be involved in each of those key initiatives and how those relationships need to be fostered and managed going forward. So some of the key initiatives are more complex than others. Some are speaking about economic development initiatives that will require a tremendous amount of partners to be involved in them. So those are things that obviously are fairly high priorities. Growing the economy, creating opportunity for everyone are pretty central components of any planning exercise. But making sure that there isn't a rush to get into it at the expense of building the right team around it is also something that the MDP needs to make sure that is presented in the document. So that way decisions are being made at the right time with the right people involved. So it's going to be a bit of an exercise as we finalize the plan to make sure that the prioritization and the implementation framework that turns those goals into actions works completely as it should. But that's really, I think, when the public will get a true opportunity to see exactly how that's going to work is when this finalized document comes forward to council in the spring.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It's just really great to understand how that the steps follow it, because it's great to have goals, but how are those going to be action item or action? And I think the draft MDP does a really great job in regards to being descriptive about that, of how it's going to be implemented in action. So if you have opportunity, feel free to go to the website and dive deep into that implementation section, as well as you have till March 13 for any feedback for that. So it gives you some time to do some reading through the document. And with that, Nick, in regards to the goals and the vision, if you can just provide a high level of, how are those developed? We did extensive amount of engagement through different phases, and just walk us through, how were those really developed with the region for the involvement with them.
Yeah, the way that we approached the engagement and truly the overall development of the MDP was a very responsive and collaborative approach. Not all the time, but sometimes with planning processes like these, community engagement can feel a little cardboard or a less genuine than one might prefer to see. But the approach that was taken with the Wood Buffalo MDP and through the discussions with planning and development staff and engagement staff and council was one that truly was iterative and responsive to what we were hearing from the public. So in that very first phase of engagement that I mentioned, the visioning one, we truly went out to the public with a completely blank slate. We said, what are the things that matter? What are the important things we need to be thinking about? What are the things that we really need to be looking at as we move forward and start developing a framework for how this plan can actually guide Wood Buffalo over the coming years? And over the course of that engagement, we had, I want to say, 30 to 40 individual meetings with stakeholder groups and Indigenous partners. We had in-person open houses with the public. We had virtual open houses. We met with stakeholder groups, councillors. We developed a list of about 21 what we called themes at the time. So that's a whole bunch of things, but those were the most important things and the recurring things that we heard coming up over and over in all of the different conversations that we had. And when we sat down and we looked at them a little bit further away, we realized that those themes could really be grouped into about 5 different buckets, more or less. And those 5 things then are what we actually came back to the public with in the second phase of engagement. So I mentioned in tonight's presentation that one of the big changes since phase 2 was that we added a 6th goal. Well, that's because we came back to the public then with these 5 goals that really reflected and responded to those 21 themes we heard in the first phase of engagement. So we had an opportunity in the second phase then to come back to the public and say, hey, this is what we heard. Did we get it right? Is this capturing appropriately what we heard you say? And how can we make it better? How can we tweak it? How can we improve it so that it does an even better job of saying the things that the community and the stakeholders and Indigenous partners are saying? And then through that second phase, this is again how we learned from the public that for the most part, the 5 that we came back with, they were on the money. There were still some little changes and shifts, and people who were familiar with the previous phase of engagement will recognize that the MDP goals that we presented today are just a little bit different than what we contemplated in phase 2. But then we have added this 6th one in. In the MDP document, we have emphasized the blue and green networks, and we've had a lot of opportunities through the phases of engagement to really dial in on the most important pieces, but also not lose that broad sense. Again, 21 different things that are important to Wood Buffalo residents here, there, and everywhere. So it has been a really interesting and fun project and process to work through, because we have had these opportunities throughout to circle back, connect, ground truth what we have. And that's why I think we've gotten to a place where the document, it resonates with members of the public. Not everything will be super exciting and amazing to everyone. It's a policy plan. I do policy for a living. I think it's great, but not many people do. But it's our hope and it's my honest belief that I don't think there's really anyone in Wood Buffalo who couldn't look at the document and not see at least a couple things that do resonate with them, because we have really been intentional in our approach to incorporating as many of those themes and important elements as we can into the document.
Great, thanks so much, Nick. And we didn't let COVID-19 stop us engaging, because we got to do some at the beginning of phase 1 in person, and then the majority's been online. So thank goodness for technology. So we're gonna get to wrap up here shortly. I think we have time to maybe ask one more question to the team here, and then we'll just do a really quick conclusion of just overview of engagement opportunities and next steps for the project. So if you do have questions, feel free to provide them in the chat or raise your hand. We'll have only a little bit of time left here with you this evening, but don't fret. There's another virtual open house next week. We are concentrating a little bit specifically more on the rural communities. However, it will give an overview of the MDP as well. So there's other opportunities that you can provide your feedback. So my last question to you, Nick, if that's okay, just talking about responsible development and what does it mean? So just really asking you, how are we going to deal with areas that are already developed, such as Parsons Creek and Sailing Creek with the draft MDP?
It's a great question. Responsible development, that can mean different things to different people. But at the end of the day, the approach that this MDP has really chosen to take through that terminology and through that entire section of the MDP is one that really respects the existing frameworks of the municipality. So where we see area structure plans, area redevelopment plans approved, these are being carried forward by and large. We're not proposing changes to documents and statutory plans because these have been developed over the past several years with a significant amount of community input. So when we talk about individual neighborhoods, Parsons Creek, Saline Creek, Sapper Creek, those there's really an attempt and an honest effort to respect local agency and to respond to what local residents want to see happen in those areas. In terms of broader development trajectory for the entire municipality, Such touched on this earlier in the evening, the municipality is in a fairly advantageous position, at least in terms of infrastructure servicing, where it has space and room to grow. So there is a lot of opportunity still to support and foster development within the existing lands that the MDP previously and the municipality already have identified. So there isn't as much conflict, for lack of a better word, between where development should and shouldn't go. There is room to grow. There is space to grow. The municipality is in a position now where it can focus more on the place and community-based approaches to how it grows and not need to worry so much about ensuring that we have capacity and we have pipes and we have roads that support this growth. That's not to say that pipes and roads and all those things aren't important. They're still critical elements of the MDP, and you'll see those in the document. We're still responsive to the master planning undergoing from the engineering side of things. We're still we're not being blind or going forward with our eyes closed over the realities of servicing growth. But the benefit of where Wood Buffalo stands today is that it does have the ability and the existing infrastructure to support those for years to come.
Thanks, Nick. That's really great background in regards to that, because some people may not know exactly what that is. So that's great information for the residents and the community to know. All right, everyone. I did see some dots in the chat. So if there is a last question, feel free to put that in. But I will just do a conclusion to let everyone know where you can get involved and have feedback. But I would like to thank everyone that took the time out of their busy schedules to be a part of this evening. Like we said, this is a community plan, and the more people we can get involved, the better. So just to let you know that the draft MDP and the highlights page that we've been talking about with the high-level summary of the document can be found on rmwb.ca/MDP. And the deadline again is to provide feedback is March 13th of this year, 2022. We do have another virtual open house as discussed. It's happening February 23rd at 6 p.m. It is specifically going into the rural communities, but again, it's a high level overview of the draft MDP and the goals and implementation. Pre-registration is available on the website. However, it's not mandatory. The direct links are available on all our platforms. And as discussed, there is an online survey and quick polls to provide your feedback on the website. All residents who provide feedback through the survey have the opportunity to enter to win a local gift card. There is also a phone survey if you are more comfortable speaking to a Pulse representative. That can be found on the Pulse number that's in the chat, 780-743-7000. It's the exact same survey. We just support through a different platform other than online. There's also a really fun youth coloring contest. This one's really exciting, just to get the youth involved and for families to have discussions around the dinner table of what MDP is to them. The prize is a visit from RMWB firefighters and fire trucks to visit your home. The coloring page can be found on rmwb.ca/MDP, and submissions can be done electronically or by mail. And all children 18 years and younger are eligible to win. If you do have more questions and would like to speak to someone, we ask you to direct all your questions to Pulse, again at 780-743-7000, and they can be directed to our MDP project team here. And following the conclusion of our public engagement, the draft plan will be defined and presented to Mayor and Council, as Nick discussed, at a later date this year. So we'd like to thank everyone for their questions tonight, and we'd like to just take the reminder for the online survey for you to participate in, again at rmwb.ca/MDP, and share it with your friends and family. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. Bye.
Thank you.